Hello and welcome to the 2012 Kendo UI Winter Release online keynote. We're really happy you're here with us today. We're really excited, and we hope you're excited too to learn about what's new in the latest Kendo UI release. We've got a lot to show you and a lot of great demos as well, so we're going to jump right into things here so we can get through it to make sure we get you on your way so you can start playing with what's new in Kendo UI. If you're not already, though, following Kendo UI on Twitter, I would encourage you to do that at Kendo UI, particularly because just by being at today's online keynote, you're already eligible and in the drawing for some pretty great prizes. A MacBook Pro Retina, a new iPad, and also one of the new iPad minis, and of course Kendo UI licenses. And simply by being here, must be present to attend, you are in the drawing for those, and we'll announce the winners on our Twitter account, the reason you should follow, as well as posting the names on our blogs. And of course, if you are one of the winners, we'll email you directly. No need to contact us. We'll contact you if you win. But if you want to be aware of the winners as they're announced, following us on Twitter is a great way to do that. Another reason to do it is because we're giving you one more chance to win something this week. If you simply tweet something you love about Kendo UI, maybe it's something in the new release you see today, something you see as we're going along today in the keynote, or something you just love in general about Kendo UI, and include the Kendo UI hashtag, simply do that by Friday, and we'll select another random winner from all the tweets that we receive by Friday, and we'll award a Kendo UI complete license there too. So 2 chances to win, 2 reasons to follow at Kendo UI on Twitter, and hopefully you guys will join in and take a chance at winning some fun prizes too. But we're here for what's new in Kendo UI, and if I've not met you before, my name is Todd Anglin. I'm Vice President for HTML5 Web and Mobile Tools at Telerik, and I will be your host for today's online keynote. If you want to connect with me online, you can at Todd Anglin. Of course, I always like getting feedback on Kendo UI, so feel free to send that. Or if you have any questions after today's keynote, please feel free to contact me there as well. I'm always happy to help. And this has been a really exciting year for Kendo UI. This is our third of 3 major releases for the year, our winter release. And just as we did with our first spring and our second summer releases, there's a ton of new stuff in here that we think you're really going to enjoy. In Q1 was major. We delivered a brand new Kendo UI Mobile, giving you the ability to build mobile experiences. In Q2, we introduced the MVC server wrappers, as well as tablet-specific UI. And here in Q3, we think the new improvements are just going to blow your mind, so we hope you enjoy it, and we want to jump right into it here, not waste any time. But before we do, I've got to mention, this is another landmark for Kendo UI today. This is Kendo UI's 1-year anniversary. Our official first release was November of 2011, and some of you were around for that release, and for those of you that were, thank you very much. We love getting your feedback. We hope you've enjoyed Kendo UI over the last year and all the improvements we've delivered, and we think next year is only going to be even better, even more improvements, and even more for all of the things you're doing with HTML and JavaScript. But we're really excited to reach this milestone. It's been a great year, and we're really looking forward to what 2013 holds. For the entire year, we've been delivering on our original promise of trying to put everything you need to build sites and mobile apps with HTML and JavaScript into a single compact framework. So you can just get to the business of building sites and apps without wasting time assembling a Frankenstein framework of libraries you've pulled from here and there and tried to glue together on your own. And of course, we do that through 3 pieces: Kendo UI Web, DataViz, and mobile. And Kendo UI Web, if you're new to Kendo UI in this release, and we know many of you today are, is where you find a lot of the UI widgets you'd use for traditional desktop keyboard and mouse style interfaces, so grids and tree views, all those useful things, as well as some non-visual components like MVVM binding and validation. All of those things you find in Kendo UI Web. In Kendo UI DataViz, you find HTML5 powered charts and gauges, and these are great when you want to build any kind of data visualization that will look good on a desktop and will run perfectly on your mobile devices too. It's the power of HTML5, no plugins required. You get that same rich visual animation. And of course, the third piece, Kendo UI Mobile, allows you to build native mobile experiences using HTML and JavaScript. But with Kendo UI Mobile, we'll automatically adapt your apps to look native on the platform where they're running. Look like iOS on iOS and Android on Android. It's the fastest way to reach the largest number of users when you want to build mobile apps. And we think if you've not looked at it, you'd really enjoy it. But it's not just about the products and the engineering. Kendo UI Web, DataViz, and mobile are very important, but to really master Kendo UI or to really make it a great product, it's about all the things surrounding it too. And one thing we've introduced since the last release is the Kendo UI Dojo. It's an interactive learning portal that guides you through lessons to help you figure out how to use Kendo UI. If you want to try it out, if you've not tried it yet, simply go to try.kendoui.com and you can try the lessons for web, DataViz, or mobile. You see a mobile lesson on the screen here. Get some guidance, write some code live, and see the result in real time and become a master of Kendo UI today. As a matter of fact, if you're new to Kendo UI, by simply completing the Kendo UI Dojo courses, you get a discount code. So there's a great way to kill two birds with one stone. Master it and get a discount code at the same time. And of course, there's the Kendo UI docs, which with this release, we're delivering tons of new content, new features that make the docs even easier to navigate and easier to use. And as we announced with our last release, the Kendo UI docs remain open on GitHub, so you can download your own copy of the docs, submit issues for us to improve the docs, and openly make this the best docs available for an HTML and JavaScript framework. But in addition to the Kendo UI Dojo and the Kendo UI docs, and of course all the online demos you know are at demos.kendoui.com, we're adding something new in this release, and we're announcing it today, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. I'm pleased to introduce to you the Kendo UI Music Store demo. This is a complete end-to-end web demo which uses a lot of the pieces of Kendo UI Web and DataViz in a .NET-based, in this case, web service backend that stores and retrieves data from SQL Server and shows you in context how to put all the different pieces of Kendo UI together. But rather than talk about a static screenshot of the new Kendo UI Music Store demo, let me jump over and show you what's in this and how you can use it to get started learning Kendo UI in a more rich context. So first demo of the day, let me jump over to my browser and show you what the Kendo UI Music Store demo is all about. Okay, here we are in my Chrome browser. I've got the new Kendo UI Music Store demo loaded up, also referred to as the Awesome Sauce Music Store. And as I mentioned, this is a complete end-to-end demo, a web demo in this case, with a .NET web service backend, persisting data into SQL Server. The whole goal here is to show you a lot of different concepts about Kendo UI and how you use it to develop apps in one place so you can see how it all works together. Right off the bat, you see we've got this big banner rotator here, and you may know if you're a Kendo UI web user that there is no rotating banner tool in Kendo UI. So this shows you how you can do a custom Kendo UI widget. We've got some menus up here showing you different ways you can actually work with menus. And I'm just take a minute here and run through some of the other features within this demo so you can see some of what's going on here, but clearly, with our limited time here, I won't be able to show you everything, but I will show you where you can grab it all for yourself in just a minute. So before I click into one of these menus, let me scroll down here, and we can see we've got some Kendo UI list views here. That's what's showing us all these nice album previews. We've got the value of the albums here. And if I click on one of these albums, I'll just click on this one here, you can see quickly a Kendo UI window pops up, and we've got the Kendo UI numeric tool in here, and you can see as I increment and decrement the number of albums I want, the value is changing in real time for my total, and that's using Kendo UI's MVVM binding. So you can see that in action. And if I want to add this to my cart, watch this area up here where my cart is. Click Add to Cart. You can see instantly my cart updates. You saw that little flash there, and there's the albums I just added. Again, all using a shared Kendo UI data source behind the scenes. So all these shopping carts and everything, wherever that data is needed, it has this one consistent shared Kendo UI data source and MVVM binding where appropriate as well. And if I come up here to genres, let me go to the rock genre. And here we can see I've got another custom list view with all my templates, this time with paging, and I can go from page 1 to 2. You can see this really fast paging happening, and we've got pagers in sync, top and bottom of this, and a total number of our items. So you can come learn how all of that works. I also have, behind the scenes, some other things. But let me, before I do that, let me show you the shopping cart checkout. So let me go ahead and add one more thing to my cart. You can see this flashes. We've got 2 items in our cart, all for justice and never mind. And we'll go to our checkout now. You can see I have both items in our cart here, and I can still come in here and adjust things. And see that shopping cart flash as I change quantities? I'll do it one more time so you can watch. I'll change this and see that flash. All of this, including the total here and my subtotal, all that's being updated automatically because of Kendo UI's MVVM binding and data sources. It's really simple for you to do, and this demo shows you how it all works out. If I want to buy these albums, we got some Metallica and Nirvana. We've got some real rock going on here. Click Checkout. And then we need to log in. So for the purpose of the demo, we've created a default demo administrator account, which you can try out for yourself. So I'm simply going to log in here with owner and the password it's prescribing for me here. If I typed it in correctly, we'll click Login. And from here, then I can go and complete my shopping experience. I put in my customer information. We see we have a Kendo UI calendar here to pick my date, and even the drop downs here to select my types of shipping. So all kinds of things going on here. Submit my order, see the thank you page. But we also have included some of the back-end stuff that you may want to see as well. So if I click on Manage Store up here in the upper right, I can see the one and only, what everybody loves, grid control. And here we have all kinds of grid functionality enabled. We've got the ability to group. So maybe I want to group by genre here. So I can just drag and drop this to my grouping. We can see that all of the grouping takes over. We've got our groups there now. I can remove the grouping. Filtering's turned on, sorting. I can add new values to my store. You can see we get some nice defaults. We've got some drop downs. Some custom editors within the grid here, some examples of that. All kinds of great stuff, including an upload tool. So I could come in here, select some album art, even upload some album art to my server. Now for the live demos that you'll be playing with, like I am here, we have disabled editing, obviously to prevent the wonderful malicious internet from getting involved. But when you download this for yourself, obviously all the editing is enabled and you can try that on your own. And the last neat thing in here is we have some Kendo UI DataViz in our simulated sales graphs. So if I click over here, we can see some nice animation there. We've got, in this case, a multi-series and multi-axis chart going on, showing us some randomized data just to simulate what our revenue overlaid with our number of orders might look like. And we've also built in the ability to change what view of the data we're looking at. So I go from week to month and month to year. And we can see all of our different values change. And we can see right here that the values along our axis change as well. So we're going from month values. Now we're seeing individual days in a month and days in a week. Pretty neat. And then, of course, down below, we've also got a pie chart that allows us to see all of our different genres, what percentage of our sales they make up. So I can come in here and change the different chart types. The cake is a lie. Even our developers like to have a little fun inside the demos, a little Easter egg. So you can come play around with all of this. Obviously, it's a very complete demo, and there's a lot happening on the server, so you can see how all this knits together with the server as well. But if you want to play with this on your own, let me jump over to a Windows machine real quick and show you how fast it is to grab this from GitHub and load it up on your own machine. Okay, so here I am on my Windows machine. In about 2 minutes, I can show you how you can have this demo downloaded on your box and running on your own. So I'm going to jump over to my Internet Explorer, where I've got the Kendo Music Store GitHub repository loaded up, which you can get to on your own. I'll give you the link in a minute. And all you need to do to grab from this page to get started is the link here to the actual Git repository. So I'm going to copy that, and I just need to clone this to my local machine. So I'll navigate to my Git directory, type git clone, paste in the link to the repository, and hit enter. And now Git's going to do its process. It's going to go out to my remote repository, start downloading all the code down to my machine, including the images, everything that's necessary for the data. All that's going to come down in this process. It's about 25, 30 megabytes. So we'll get it all down on my machine, and looks like it worked. So let me check in my File Explorer and see if it's there. And if it works, it should look just like this. There we go, Kendo Music Store, and here's all of my folders. I'm just going to go ahead and launch the solution here, which is going to open up Visual Studio. Visual Studio will load up my project, and if you've cloned it correctly, then it should load right up in Visual Studio 2010 or, of course, 2012. And it's going to get everything ready for me. And really, at this point, if my machine's set up properly, then all I have to do is run the project. Now, of course, all the files are there, so you can learn from everything that we've done to make this complete Kendo UI Music Store demo work. So if I'm to come over here and poke into the Solution Explorer, then you'll see all of the files here. And I'll just scroll here quickly so you can see. There's a lot in here, and we won't go through it today, but trust me, it's there. But what I will do is just come up here and simply start the project without debugging. And make sure you have the NuGet package support enabled, because when this starts up, it's going to go ahead and grab any necessary NuGet packages from the remote repository, so my project will run. And if my build succeeds, which it looks like it did, we'll launch up in a browser. And just like that, in less than 2 minutes, I've gone and grabbed a URL, cloned a repository, opened a solution, hit run, my browser launched. And if we cross our fingers here, it looks like it's working. Here is my own instance of the Kendo UI Music Store demo running on my own machine. Everything we just looked at for you to play around with and learn from. Pretty cool. You'll be up and running in no time. So let's wrap up the Kendo Music Store demo and look at some other stuff we've got going on today. So once again, if you want to get your own copy of the demo that we just looked at, simply go to github.com/telerik/kendo-music-store, clone the repository or download the zip from GitHub, and you've got everything we just saw on your own machine. Or if you just want to play around with the live demo like we just did, just jump over to KendoUIMusicStore.com. It's running live on the cloud. Check it out and learn from it there. So now it's actually time to talk about what's new in Kendo UI in this release, in the actual product itself. And this release for us is really about enterprise-ready HTML5, delivering in Kendo UI support that stands up to the rigors of enterprise and government projects while still delivering features that are easy enough to use and productive enough to use in a project of any size, even the smallest, simplest projects. We're doing that in 3 key ways in this release. We're improving Kendo UI DataViz, we're addressing accessibility in a very thorough way, and we're adding support for Java. Let's talk about DataViz first. Kendo UI DataViz is a key piece of the overall Kendo UI Web, mobile, and DataViz collection, and in this release, we're delivering the most significant update to DataViz since the original release. We are adding a brand new chart type to Kendo UI DataViz, financial charts, which allow you to easily now display financial data within our HTML5-based charting solution. And we're adding interactive chart features to all available Kendo UI DataViz chart types, which allow users to pan and zoom data, interact with data like you can see here, to give them that ability to, in real time, dissect the insights that your data contains and really make your applications more powerful. To see how you can use this in your own apps, though, it's better to see it in action than for me to talk about it. So I'm going to invite to our digital stage here our first guest presenter, Burke Holland, Kendo UI developer advocate. And Burke's going to run through the new improvements in Kendo UI DataViz, the financial charts, the chart interactivity, and show us how all of this works in action. So Burke, the stage is all yours.
Todd, thank you so much. Hey everybody, this is Burke, and I am thrilled to be back today for this Q3 release and to show you some of the really neat stuff that we've got for you today. If you would allow me for just a second to pimp myself a little bit, you can find me on Twitter at Burke Holland. If you want to hit me up after the keynote or you just want to chat, feel free to reach out on Twitter a lot, probably too much, and you can definitely find me there. You'll also notice on this page that my son was the guy from Minecraft for Halloween. I just want to point that out because I thought that was really, really neat, and he really pulled it off. All right, let's get right into it. When we started planning for this keynote, Todd asked if I would show off the new stock chart in the DataViz, the new DataViz stuff that we have this quarter, which is really, really nice. And so that's what we're going to do today. If this is your first time or tuning in for a keynote with us, I usually do all my demos in OS X. You'll notice today that I'm in Visual Studio, and additionally I am in Windows 8. So what I have here is a simple ASP.NET MVC3 project. I'm going to zoom in here over on the side and we'll take a look at the project structure. It's pretty straightforward. The only things that really are of note is that I have a database here that contains some stock data. I've got Kendo DataViz CSS already added to my project, and I've got jQuery and Kendo JS DataViz as well. And then I have a home controller that doesn't really do anything besides return the title of the page here. And I'll up the font size throughout this so we can see this a bit better. There we go. And if we run this, it's a very, very simple application that just at this moment has a title and is ready and waiting for a chart. So let's go ahead and add that. We'll start as we always do in these demos by adding in the CSS files and the JavaScript files to the index page here. It's just a single page. Go ahead and scale this down a little bit, and we'll add in the CSS files at the top here. And then in accordance with web application development best practices, I'll go ahead and put the JavaScript here at the bottom. Perfect. Let's add a simple HTML element here that will turn into our chart. So we'll add a div and give it an ID of stock chart here. Perfect. Close that off. Thank you, Visual Studio. And then I'm going to open a script block here down at the bottom underneath my script includes, and increase the font size again just a tad. Other way. There we go. And let's add a document ready function. There we go. And this will just execute as soon as everything on the page is loaded. And now that I've done that, I just need to add a create chart method. So I'm just going to select the div and call Kendo stock chart. So let's do that and nothing else and see what that does, if anything at all, in our application. And you'll see that it does render a chart here, but we need to add some data to it. Right now, this is just kind of a placeholder, doesn't really know how to draw the chart. So let's do that by adding a controller method and getting some data out of our database. As I mentioned before, I already have some stock data here in the stocks database, and it is stocks for Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple for the past, say, 10 to 15 years, or as much as I could get. So thank you, Yahoo Finance, for providing that in a convenient CSV download for us for this demo today. Now, I'm going to create in my data folder here a new ADO.NET entity data model, and what I want to do is I'm going to connect to this SQL Server Compact Edition database. Let me change the driver here. And then we'll go ahead and browse to this database and add it. And then I just need to put in the password. There we go. And then we'll save it, because what could possibly go wrong? Test the connection, and we're good to go. And I'm going to include sensitive data in the connection stream, because again, I'm very brave. And then I'm going to include all of the tables, the quotes, and the symbols here, and let it create this entities model for me. Now, here in this model, I've got a symbol table and a quote table. The symbol table contains a name and a description, and the quotes table contains open, high, low, close volume quote data for every day for the past 10 to 15 years for these companies. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and work on returning this data in a controller method. So let's create a stocks controller. So we'll add a new controller, and we'll call it stocks controller. And I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the default boilerplate code here, and I'm going to add a new method for quotes. But before I do that, I need to add our entity data, our EF context here. So we'll add a new entities context here at the top, and we can make it read only since it's private. Entities, there we go. And then we're ready to go ahead and add our method to return or select the data out of those entities. But before I do that, I actually need to add a model for my quote that I can return back as JSON, since I'm going to be returning a JSON result. So I'm going to go ahead and add a plain user-defined class here, and I'm just going to call it the quote view model. And then I've got some properties that I want to go ahead and put in here. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of a snippet to speed this up a bit. There we go. I've got 15 minutes. I want to stay under that mark. And here we're just going to return the symbol, the date, the low, the high, the open, the close, and the volume. And I've flattened the data out a bit, but we're just returning one data set, so it's easier for us to do it this way, just for demo purposes. And now that I have this, I can actually return this. So what I want to do is I want to create the quotes method, which is going to return a JSON result. There we go. And then inside of this, what we need to do is define some upper and lower limits. And the reason for this is I have a lot of data and I don't want to return it all, so I'm just going to return the past 10 years of historical data. And then I'm going to do a link query against the entities here to return the view model. And what we'll do for right now is this little query right here. Let me go ahead and drop this off to the side so we have more real estate. And what I'm doing is selecting from the quotes table where the date is between the upper and lower bounds that I've defined here, and where the symbol name is equal to Microsoft. So we're just going to select Microsoft right now. And then I order by the name and by the date. The stock chart is going to want the data to be in date order, and we can do that on the client side, but it's easier to do it on the server side. And then I'm saying as enumerable because I'm doing a toString down here. The stock chart will recognize an MVC formatted date, but I like to format my dates coming out of MVC as the other format is not so beautiful in JSON if you've seen it before. So we've got all this. We're ready to actually go back to our chart and configure, but let's take a look at our endpoint first. And we've got some build errors, and let's see what the problem is. We're not returning the result out of this method, so let me go ahead and add that. So we're just going to return this .json, and then we'll return quotes, which was the object that we selected, and then we will allow a get behavior. And now we should be able to actually query this. Go ahead and run this, and we'll just say stocks and quotes. And you can see here we're pulling back. This is the JSON response we got. Here's Microsoft. Here's our nicely formatted date and all of the data that we need to create this stock chart. So let's go ahead and configure the Kendo UI stock chart. Head back over to Visual Studio, and we're finally getting into the good part here. So in our stock chart, the first thing we need to do is define the data source. So we'll do that here. I'm going to create a new data source, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to my snippets here and create the data source. There we go. And this will read the stock/quotes, which we've already seen returns JSON. And then the next thing that I need to do is that I need to tell the chart what the date field is. And this tells it how to begin to render the data, and it renders it by date, so it's going to need that information. And then the next thing that it's going to want to know is it's going to want to know how to display this data, or what sort of chart to use when it displays the data. So we'll go ahead and define a series here. And the series that we're going to define is a line chart, and we are going to chart in the top part of the graph, in a line graph, the close field, which would be the closing price of the stock at the end of each day. And then the last thing that I want to do is I want to specify the navigator. Now the navigator, it runs along the bottom of the chart and allows us to refine the area in the top part by displaying a large navigation pane along the bottom. And I'm going to display that as an area chart, and again we're going to chart the close field, and then I'm just going to set a default select that's going to come from the 1st of 2012 all the way to today, since I'm not specifying a 2. So we made all these changes. I'm going to jump back over here, and we'll go ahead and come back. And you can see that I'm now getting some data on my chart here, and I can mouse over and I've got these data points, which is real nice. And then down here I've got this navigator which I can drag, and you can see this nice indicator moving across the top, and I can actually refine the length or how big it is, and you'll see that the dates change in the top as I make it smaller, move it around. It actually goes from being month to being day, so we can make it very specific. Now another thing that we can do is we can actually add in another pane below the actual line chart itself. So to do that, I'm going to, up here before the date, I'm going to add in some panes. And what the panes does is it specifies some configuration values for 2 charts that will be above the navigator. The first one I'm just going to specify a title, and then the second one I'm going to specify a name so I can reference it, and I'm going to say that this is the volume. I'm going to track the volume of stocks that were traded. And then the next thing that I need to do before I can actually make this work is that I need to add a value axis. And the value axis, because the stock chart is a chart, it needs to know what the value axis is. And for the top, it's the default. And for the bottom, we're referencing the volume pane, and we're giving it a name of volume. Now that we've done this, we can add a new series here below the line. So we'll add a volume series. And what this will do is it will create another chart below our chart that's plotting the close price of the line, to use columns to chart the volume, and then we will reference the volume axis that we created right here. There it is. All right, we've got all these changes, so let's go ahead and hop over and refresh. And now we're pulling in the volume and the close price up here, and I can move this around again, very nice. And I can also drag and click and move. So very nice user experience here. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to change something here. I'm going to make the height of this to be 200, that's in pixels, just to change this a little bit. And the other thing that I want to do is in the stocks controller, I want to go ahead and kill this right here so we can look at multiple data. So go ahead and save that. Now we'll be returning Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon to have a look. And in the data source, I just need to tell it that I want it to group, and I want it to group on the symbol field. So it's going to group it all together. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll come back, and we're actually going to have to restart the app since we made some changes to the C#. And we'll load up our chart. And now, instead of one company, we're tracking 3 different companies. So you can see here, and very nicely overlaid on this area chart in the bottom, the column chart, and this line chart here at the top. But we have a couple things that we can do differently. We have new chart types, including the candlestick and the OLHC chart. Let's have a look at those. We can take out this column chart here, or the line at the top, excuse me, and we'll do a candlestick instead. Now, this is usually used when you're talking about low and high data and you want to look at it all, or financial data, and you want to look at it all at the same time. So I'm going to switch to a candlestick here, which is nice and legit. I like that. So we're going to have an open field, a high, a low, and a close. And then in the stocks controller, I'm just going to go ahead and put back my symbol name here for Microsoft, since candlestick and OLHC are really good for tracking one stock at a time and not several. So we'll go ahead and render that and see what we've got. And now we're tracking just the Microsoft stock, and you can see that each one of these that I mouse over, we get an open, a high, a low, and a close. And if the stock's up, it's orange. If it's down, it's this depressing gray color because, of course, we're down. And we can go ahead and switch this chart type to the OLHC, or the open, low, high, close type. So let's go ahead and check that out. Let me find my candlestick here. There we go. So we'll change it to OLHC and refresh. And it looks like it's OH, maybe OHLC. So OHLC, note to self, not OLHC. It's important to get it right there. So we'll save that and switch back to the app and refresh. And we're now getting the OHLC stock chart type here. And you can see I get the same data points as I mouse over each one of these items. One of the things that I wanted to show you everyone today was our touch and user interaction on a mobile device. So I'm going to switch to my camera real quick and show you what this looks like on a mobile device using touch. To switch to my camera, I'm going to hop into Metro here and pull up the camera app. And here you can see I have a copy of the stock chart demo that I'm actually hosting on my favorite site for hosting apps, which is App Harbor. And you can see that it has this very nice touch and drag, very touch friendly. I can move the endpoints here. I can move the app itself by dragging back and forth. And I can actually grab each one of these handles and pinch and drag to make this navigator smaller or bigger. So the stock chart supports multi-touch and very user-friendly, very nice, engineered for touch devices and for mobile. That's all I got for you today in terms of the stock chart demo. I hope that you enjoyed it. With that, I'm going to send it back to Todd. Thanks.
Great stuff. If you want to see what Burke just did, again, as a reminder, this entire webcast is being recorded and will be available on the official Kendo UI YouTube channel shortly after today's live event. So if you want to go catch that awesome demo Burke just did again, it'll be available for you very soon online. Let's talk about accessibility. Accessibility is something that every enterprise and government project has to do, and many smaller projects should do, but we often avoid because it seems complex and confusing. Accessibility, when we start getting into it as developers, often starts tossing in terms that none of us are thoroughly familiar with. Section 508, WCAG 2.0, WAI ARIA. We know these things are important. We know they matter to the accessibility standards, or rather they are the accessibility standards. They matter to our users. But for many developers, when we start getting into this, we have this reaction. We just don't know where to begin. And frankly, we would love to make our applications more accessible, especially our HTML5 and JavaScript applications, but we need to do it without reducing our productivity. And in the Kendo UI release, we're addressing this in a very significant way, but rather than try to tell you about it, I'm going to invite to the stage our next guest presenter, Brandon Satrom, Kendo UI Program Manager. And Brandon's going to explain to you why accessibility matters in your applications and how Kendo UI is going to make it a lot easier for you to address. So Brandon, take it away.
Thanks, Todd. Accessibility has been a very important part of our winter release, and we're very excited to share the results of our work with you today. Now, web accessibility, simply put, is the creation of sites and applications that can be fully experienced by the broadest number of users. That includes disabled users who typically visit the sites we create with the help of assistive technology, such as screen readers. For the most basic text-driven web experiences, these technologies work really well, and disabled users benefit greatly. But the web has exploded well beyond the realm of text-based experiences in the last decade, and assistive technologies, frankly, have struggled to keep up. The good news is that there is something that we can do about it as web developers to easily bridge this gap to those assistive technologies, which enables these tools to better aid disabled users as they interact with the sites that we create. So by providing things like full keyboard support, high contrast visual elements, text-based equivalents of non-text elements, and things like that in our apps, and also by adhering to standards like WAI ARIA, WCAG 2.0, and Section 508, we have the tools we need as developers to create accessible, rich internet applications. For the winter release of Kendo UI, we decided to not only embrace these standards and guidelines, but to do as much as possible to bake them into Kendo UI Web and make them available to your apps right out of the box. Now today I want to show you 4 of those new features. ARIA support for Kendo UI Web, full keyboard support for Kendo UI Web widgets, the inclusion of new high contrast themes, and finally, right-to-left support for right-to-left languages. Let's take a look at each of these now. Now, the first accessibility feature of Kendo UI Web that I want to address today is ARIA, a World Wide Web Consortium specification that's designed to be a framework for web developers to use in developing applications that leverage AJAX, scripting, and other rich application techniques. The framework specifies a series of steps that developers can use in their own applications to make them more accessible to assistive technologies like screen readers. WA ARIA was actually created to bridge the gap between rich applications, the kinds of AJAX-y things that we create today, and disabled users by introducing additional metadata through HTML element attributes that screen readers can use to reason about a control or DOM element. These attributes like role, ARIA has pop-up, ARIA selected, ARIA labeled by, and others provide vital information to screen readers, which can then be used to provide a richer level of interaction with your site for disabled visitors. Now, ARIA is especially important for applications that rely heavily upon scripted widgets, AJAX, and partial page updates to deliver user experience. And because we know that Kendo UI is often used in these types of applications, we thought it best to provide full ARIA support to all Kendo UI web widgets right out of the box. The beautiful thing is that we have done all of the heavy lifting for you, making Kendo UI the first HTML5 framework to provide full ARIA support for its web widgets. We closely followed the W3C's widget design guidelines in the WAI ARIA specification, and we will automatically add all the necessary role value and additional attributes that you need for a widget based upon that widget in question. There's nothing more that you need to do to take advantage of those features than to just use the widgets as you do today. Now, to show you what I mean, let's take a look at a demo. Now, I'm going to demo the Kendo UI menu widget using VoiceOver, a popular screen reader for OS X. Windows also has built-in screen readers, and there are several commercial and open source readers like JAWS and NVDA available on the market today. So I'm first going to show off the menu widget without our Q3 ARIA support. So as of right now, this sample page is using the Kendo UI Q2 release and the bits that come along with that. Now, in the bottom of the screen, you're going to be able to see any of the text that you would normally see when VoiceOver is speaking. I'm going to go ahead and turn VoiceOver on. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn VoiceOver on, and I had to go ahead and mute it because it doesn't pick up well in capture for some reason, but I will narrate as we walk through this. So I'm going to refresh the page, and as soon as that picks up on the menu item, or excuse me, on the H1, I'm going to scroll down to the menu, and you notice that it tells me I have a list of 6 items. I can navigate over to the products menu, but I can't really do anything beyond that. I can't expand that item. I don't know. I'm not getting any indication from VoiceOver that this is actually part of a menu or a menu item. I'm just getting a bunch of names: product, stores, blog, company, events. So this can obviously be very confusing for a user that's trying to navigate through this experience. So now let's take a look at what this actually looks like inside of the Q3 release. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the DevTools. So all I've done here to actually change this is I've slotted in the bits for Kendo UI Q3 for our winter release. So this just has the JavaScript and the CSS. Nothing else in my implementation of this menu has changed. It's exactly the same otherwise. So you'll get to see exactly what you get for free here. If you actually look at the source, you'll notice now that I've got a role of menu bar, and I've got an ARIA active descendant attribute, which tells me exactly what the container pop-up element, how that's identified to the screen reader so it can interact with that. And each one of my individual menu items are identified as such as a menu item. And this last menu item is designated as disabled so the screen reader won't interact with it and things like that. So that's really nice, and that's something that I get for free. And so let's take a look now at actually what happens when I use VoiceOver, and how that changes the way things interact. So you notice now I'm still getting my name of the list, but now I'm told that the product is a menu item. It highlights the entire box now. Stores is a menu item. Blog, company, events, menu item. So now the user has a lot more information about what's actually going on inside of these widgets. And you'll see the same thing in our date pickers and every single one of those web widgets, as well as the screen reader will now have more information that they can provide your end users. And you can get all of that information for free just by using the latest Kendo UI bits. Now, another important piece of accessibility included in the Kendo UI Winter release is full keyboard support for Kendo UI Web. For starters, Kendo UI now recognizes access keys and automatically preserves those when creating new widgets. This is especially helpful in those cases when Kendo creates multiple DOM elements in order to construct some of our more complex widgets. For the unfamiliar, the access key property is a property that can be placed on HTML elements to tell the browser that the element in question can be activated with a keyboard. Let's actually take a look at that now, do a bit of a demo of Kendo UI keyboard support. And in the case of the rest of the demos today, I'm actually going to use a fictional site called Faceplant. Now, Faceplant is a place where speakers can register, post sessions, and take live feedback and questions from their audiences while they're presenting. Now, if I open up the home page and click the speaker menu item, I'm taken to the Create Speaker page. And this is a page that's already making use of several Kendo UI widgets, like the date picker for the birthday, time for preferred session time, using a Kendo combo box, and also using the editor as well. So in this case, I want to add an access key to our speaker field. So I'll open up the project here in Sublime Text, and on the name field, I'm just going to very quickly add an access key. And I'm just going to specify that as an access key of N. So once I've added that, I can go back and I can refresh the page. And what I'll do in this case is to use the access key, it's going to be something that's browser and operating system specific. In the case of Chrome on the Mac, the access key combination is Control Option and then whatever key I've specified. So in this case, that's Control Option N. You'll notice that I'm now focused on the name field. Now if I switch to another field, I can hit Control Option N again and I'm back. So that's very, very simple, very quick access key support. Now, of course, keyboard support in Kendo is about more than just mapping access keys for you on our controls. It's actually also about ensuring that your users can access the full capabilities of Kendo UI widgets using just the keyboard. And that is something that we also want to provide out of the box. So if we take a look at the date picker, for example, on our birthday field, I can start by adding an access key of B to that field on the speaker form. Now when I go back to the page and I hit Control Option B, I navigate automatically to that birthday field, and then I can actually use the keyboard shortcuts that we've specified to interact with that field. It's not just a text field, so I need a little bit more help here. In this case, I can hit Alt down arrow to open up the date picker, navigate around, go to different months and dates and things like that. Once I choose a date, I can hit Enter. And of course, I can also close it again using Alt up arrow. So the user gets automatic keyboard support in there. So, and all of our Kendo UI web widgets have that full keyboard support, including the grid. And you can learn more about the built-in key combinations for our widgets on the keyboard navigation demo for each individual widget at demos.kendoui.com. In addition to providing full WAI, ARIA, and keyboard support for all Kendo UI web widgets, we're also shipping 2 new high contrast themes with the Kendo UI Winter release. High contrast settings are vital for users with low vision and other visual disabilities. And if you need to add high contrast support to your apps, it's as simple as swapping out a style sheet. So let's take a look at the Faceplant speaker form once more. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by adding a reference to the style sheet for my high contrast theme. And you'll notice here that it's just a new style sheet name. It's kendo.highcontrast.min.css. And once I've added that to my page, I'm going to have high contrast support by default for my Kendo UI widgets. Now, I do have one more step I'm going to take to get a full high contrast application. And that's to add the K-content class to my page, which ensures that the entire page receives high contrast styles, as opposed to just the Kendo UI widgets and form elements. Now I can add this class to any container, but in this case I'll apply it to the body of the page. So now when I refresh the page, I'm going to get a nice high contrast visualization of my application. Then you'll get that out of the box. In designing the new high contrast theme, we really tried to ensure that it adheres to existing WCAG and Section 508 standards. And I'm happy to share that the Kendo UI high contrast theme well surpasses the minimum contrast ratios specified by the W3C, and thus is WCAG 2.0 AAA compliant. Now, the final accessibility feature that I want to share with you today is our built-in right-to-left support. Now, admittedly, RTL falls more into the internationalization space, but you'll often hear us refer to RTL as an accessibility feature, because after all, RTL is about making user experiences more accessible for users working in right-to-left languages like Arabic, Hebrew, Chinese, or Japanese. So with all that said, adding RTL features in your own apps is really simple. All you need to do to get started is to grab the kendo.rtl style sheets from the styles folder in the latest release and add that to your application. And then from there, what you'll do is you'll add a style declaration to the RTL style sheet, that RTL style sheet in your app. So in my app here, you'll see inside of my public folder, my style sheets that I do actually have pulled over the Kendo RTL style sheet along with everything else. So on my layout page, I'm going to add that style sheet. And it's as simple as that. Once I have that, now that's not going to activate anything, because what I need to do after that is I need to actually add the KRTL class somewhere on my page. That's how I sort of turn it on to let it know that a certain widget or a certain set of features or a section need to be specified as supporting RTL. So I can do that actually. I'm going to add that to the section container for my page. So I'll save that. And now when I actually refresh my page, you'll notice that all of the labels have been moved to the right, all of the boxes have been moved to the right as well. And so in typing, is right to left as well. It seems a little odd with English, but of course it creates a great user experience for folks that are working in those right to left languages. Of course, unless you're building an app that exclusively uses RTL languages, this feature is really, it's probably something that you'd want to apply, not for everybody, but based on external input, like a language selection or information about the user's language from HTTP headers or the user agent. So in that case, what you can do is you can actually add the RTL class at runtime, just like you can any other class with Kendo UI. And so we're going to do a quick demo of that now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a button. I'm not going to mess with doing any external input at this point. I'm just going to add a button that allows me to activate or trigger RTL support on the form. So once I click that button, I'm going to need a click handler as well that essentially toggles on and off right to left support on the form. So you'll notice that what happens is I actually grab a reference to the form. I look to see whether or not that has the RTL class. If it doesn't, I add it. If it does, I remove it. So it gives me that toggle functionality with the button. So now if I refresh, you'll notice that my RTL is turned off, and I can turn it back on to provide that for users as well. So very easy to turn on and off conditionally based on user input. So I am personally very excited about all of the out-of-the-box accessibility features that we've been able to deliver for Kendo UI in this quarter, and I really hope that you like them. As of today, getting started with accessibility in your own apps is as simple as downloading Kendo UI and adding some of our widgets. That's pretty awesome if you ask me. Back to you, Todd.
Very good stuff. So Kendo UI, this release delivering industry-leading accessibility support out of the box, keyboard support, high contrast themes, built-in WAIRA roles. We think you're going to love it. It's going to give you, just with no extra effort, great accessibility support within your app. So check that out today for sure. Next, let's talk about our support for Java developers. Java, much like .NET, is one of the largest and most used languages worldwide. And with this release, we want to make it easier for Java developers to work with Kendo UI. In our last release, we introduced the very first set of Kendo UI server wrappers. And we consider these productivity maximizers for HTML5 for developers that prefer to work with server languages. In our summer release, we added server wrappers for ASP.NET MVC. And when we added the server wrappers, it allowed a developer to avoid writing HTML and JavaScript like this, and instead work in the languages where they're already familiar and already comfortable. So for ASP.NET MVC, you could work with the native .NET syntax and Visual Studio and all the things that you like and are using today and achieve the same result. With today's release, we add server wrappers for Java JSP developers. So you can now produce all the Kendo UI Web widgets that you want to work with, Kendo UI Web, Kendo UI DataViz, using the server-side language and features and IDEs you already know and are already productive with using today. Either way, whether you use the JavaScript and HTML, the .NET server wrappers, or today's brand new Java JSP wrappers, it all produces the same result, the powerful features of Kendo UI running on the client, taking advantage of the browser's JavaScript and HTML5 features. But for you, you can be more productive working with Kendo UI. So once again, to show us how this works in context, I'm going to re-invite to our digital stage Burke Holland to show us the brand new Java JSP wrappers and how you can get started working with them in this release. So Burke, once again, the stage is yours.
So this is really awesome because I get to demonstrate for you guys today the new Java server wrappers for Kendo UI. They are really neat. They are JSP wrappers, and you can use them with plain JSP, or you can use a framework if you like to roll that way, like maybe Spring or something like that. So what I'm going to do is create just a simple dynamic web app here in Eclipse. And we're going to create a Stack Overflow dashboard and abuse the Stack Overflow API just a little bit today. And now that I have this empty project, in the web content folder, I want to add a new JSP page. So I'll add a new file and I will call it index.jsp. And then let's change the title out here and call this Stack Overflow Dashboard. Very nice. Now, in order to start using the server wrappers, I need to add them to this lib folder here. How do we do that? Well, it's actually ridiculously easy. You just take this, drag it, and drop it. It'll ask you if you want to copy. You say, please do. And that's it. Really. Now, we do need to add in at the top of the page and include to tell the page that we want to use the server wrappers. And that's including the tag library. So let's go ahead and include that. And once we've done this, included this tag library here, we can now use Kendo tags in the HTML. And I'll show you what that looks like. When I start typing Kendo, you can see that I get back a list of all the widgets that are available for me to use. Very nice with IntelliSense here, and all of the configuration values. Now if I pick one of these, like say the data source, and I do a space, I can control space and see all of the methods and properties that are available on the data source for me to work with. So very nice to use the features of the IDE, things like IntelliSense, and not having to guess at certain configuration values because they're right there for you and a list to select from. So let me go ahead and remove this. We do need to use the Kendo UI JavaScript and CSS because ultimately that's what Kendo UI is going to be using. So I'm going to copy that over into this web content folder and say OK. And then I'm going to include them in the page here. So there we go. So we're going to include the common CSS file and the default theme, as well as jQuery and Kendo. And if you've seen any of those demos before or worked with Kendo UI, you know that that's kind of the basic of what we need for a Kendo UI app. And then in the body here, I'm going to create just a small amount of markup. And by small amount of markup, I mean one tag. And in this tag, I'm going to create my controls. And I want to create a chart, because I'm on a charting kick today. So I'm going to do a pie chart looking at all the tags, or at least the tags that the API will give me, and compare that to the total number of tags. So let's go ahead and add this chart in. All right, now let's just pause for a moment and have a look at this markup. We're creating a Kendo chart and then creating a remote data source, defining the transport and then the read. And so we're going to read this tags variable. We're going to request it in JSON-P since it's going to be cross-domain. And I'm going to move this cursor down here. There we go. And close the transport. And then we're going to have a series defined here. And we're going to say that the type is pi. And then we're going to set the labels and the tooltip. And we're even going to set things like the template all here in the markup. We haven't written a lick of JavaScript yet. I'm going to set the height right here. And then we're going to close that chart off. Now, as I'm sitting here coding this, I'm noticing that we've got some squigglies, and that's not good. And so if I mouse over here, I can see tags cannot be resolved to a variable. It's because I haven't declared this tags variable yet. Let's go ahead and add in the variables that we're going to need for this project. Essentially, these variables are just the Stack Overflow API URLs that we're going to read from. They're kind of verbose and long, as you can see as I scroll back through. So it just kind of makes it cleaner for me to put them in variables. And once I've done that, we're now getting the squigglies are gone and tags is legit, and we're ready to run this and check out what we've got so far. So I'm going to go ahead and run, save our changes here, and we will launch in Internet Explorer 10 and have a look here. And we have this really nice pie chart, nice animation, and you can see that we're pulling back all of these tags here, and we can see exactly the number. And interestingly enough, Java is second only to C# in the number of questions here. So good for Java devs. Very nice. Now I'd like to add a little bit more interactivity to this chart. Specifically, I want to be able to click on one of these slices here and populate a grid with maybe the questions that are tagged with that specific tag. So let's jump back over to Eclipse and add that in. Just below our chart here, I'm going to go ahead and add in a grid. And here we are. And in the grid, you can see that it's essentially just like the chart with this markup here. Everything is configured, including the data source. And there are some things that are added because we're going to write just a teensy-weensy bit of JavaScript. So I'm specifying a parameter map function here. And I'm specifying a parse function here as well. Now we need to add those into the JavaScript below. And then you can see this is where the columns are defined inside of a columns tag. So let's drop down and write this little bitty bit of JavaScript that I said we were going to write here. Promise just a small amount. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add in this JavaScript. So here's the JavaScript for the grid. So we have the current tag for the grid, or the current tag which we're going to set as a default to C#. And then the parse function is essentially just going to get the total so that we can do paging, add the total onto our object. And then in the parameter map, I'm just going to send in this current tag into the parameter map as a parameter so it gets appended onto the URL. So let's go ahead and indent this a little bit to make it prettier. Oh, that's nice. All right, now that we've got all of this in, let's go ahead and run this and see what we've got so far. So we've got this chart here up top, and I've got a grid down here with no tags selected. And if I click on this, we're still not populating the grid because we need to add a click event to the chart. So I'm going to go back into Eclipse, and I'm going to add in a JavaScript click event here. So let's go ahead and get this. There we are. And that's our click event. And the click event's going to set the value of this current tag to be whatever we click on. And then it's going to cause the grid to refresh its data source. And then it's going to set the text of the tag H2, which was the tag that said no tag selected, so that we know what tag we're currently looking at. And then we just need to tell the chart to call that. Now, I don't remember exactly what that method is called, so I'm going to look through my list here. It's a series click. That's what it's called. And I'll set that equal to click. So with making that change, I'm going to jump back over here to Internet Explorer, and we'll pull this up and refresh here. And now when I click on one of these tags here, you can see that the grid refreshes below, and there's some paging, and I can page through here, and I can click on these links and actually get out to Stack Overflow to look at that specific question. So let's add a little bit of style to this to make it a little bit sexier. I'm going to scroll up to the top and add in just a smidgen of CSS here right below my script tags. So let's add in our CSS. We're going to make the whole thing black, and we're going to use a new theme that's in this release of Kendo UI called Metro Black. It's a really nice theme, and we'll just add Metro Black to the chart as well. So I'm just control space, find the theme, there it is, and we'll set that equal to Metro Black. We'll save all this, and because Eclipse is restarting and rebuilding for me automatically, I just need to come and refresh, and you'll see that now the chart is moved to the left, the grid is moved to the right, so we have this very nice split view, and I can click on something and see the questions over here on the right hand side, and I can even sort them to find out which ones don't have an answer or have the highest answer count. So really, really cool stuff in this version of Kendo UI with the Java server wrappers. Definitely download this and start working with the beta today so that you can start building your apps with the Java server wrappers, because it can be a whole lot of fun. Todd?
Very cool demo. Thanks, Burke, for that. As Burke mentioned, the Java JSP wrappers in this release are a beta release, and we will release them officially in the first release of 2013. So this is your chance to go download them, try them out, send your feedback so we can make the official release early next year the best release possible. When it's introduced, of course, it'll be Kendo UI Complete for JSP, similar to how we introduced Kendo UI Complete for ASP.NET MVC, and it'll include Kendo UI Web, DataViz Mobile, and the JSP server wrappers themselves. And we know there are other server frameworks out there as well, so stay tuned. It's not stopping here at Java and .NET. We'll keep addressing additional frameworks in the future. So while the enterprise stuff we just talked about is incredible, the brand new interactive DataViz features and the financial charts, the new accessibility support, industry-leading accessibility support, and of course the brand new Java JSP wrappers for the huge Java developer community, there's even more in this release that I'm excited about, and I want to make sure you're aware of before we wrap up today, because this is just a massive release here at the end of the year. There's so much, in fact, we can't go through all of it today, but let me just run over some of the things you're going to find in this release when you open it up. Like brand new themes in Kendo UI Web and DataViz, high contrast themes, Metro themes, new theme builder for Kendo UI Mobile, which is an incredible drag and drop experience if you've not checked it out, as well as theme builder integration for Kendo UI DataViz. So you can now easily, using the theme builder tools, style your charts and gauges. A new image browser for the Kendo UI Web editor, icon font support in Kendo UI Mobile, new zoomable view so you can zoom on, pinch and zoom on any element, complete gesture API in Kendo UI Mobile so you can handle swipes and taps, double taps, an overhauled animation framework, and as you'd expect in any release, tons of optimizations and bug fixes which just make Kendo UI better everywhere you look. And even this just scratches the surface of what makes up this huge winter release for Kendo UI. Let me zoom in, though, for just a minute on one of these items, that overhauled animation framework, because that's something that you will probably enjoy using in your Kendo UI mobile apps in particular, but you may want to know a little bit more about how that works. In our last release, we mentioned that we were working with Google for Google I/O to do some neat stuff with HTML5 and JavaScript, and since then we've worked with them more to develop a very cool app called the Chrome Camera app. Chrome Camera app works and leverages all these latest HTML5 and JavaScript features to build a complete standalone app experience that uses a lot, as you might expect, of Kendo UI. And within this app, we've leveraged the brand new Kendo UI animation framework to add some very rich and interactive animations to this application experience. If you want to try the Chrome Camera app for yourself, simply grab a Chrome OS device. The new Chrome Camera app built by Kendo UI is included on every Chrome OS device by default, which we're really excited about. But you can also download this and run it in any Chrome browser as well. That's the beauty of HTML5. It runs everywhere. So let me show you very quickly the Chrome Camera app here and how that new animation framework is being used to make our app even more immersive and rich. So I'm going to be your demo driver once more, and let me jump over to a browser and load up Chrome Camera. Okay, so I know we're running really short on time, or a little bit over, and I appreciate you sticking around for this last demo. I guarantee it'll be fun. We're here in my Chrome Canary browser because all apps created for Chrome can run in Chrome or, of course, on Chrome OS, and it's easier for me to demo to you today in Chrome Canary, so we can take advantage of all the latest features. And I've got the Chrome Camera app installed here, and you can see when I launch this, it's actually launched outside the browser. And that's the neat thing. HTML and JavaScript now is about much more than just browser experiences. I'm going to click this and launch Chrome Cam, and this will fire up my live cam. So, hey everybody, thanks for joining us on today's Kendo UI release keynote. All this is built using Kendo UI, JavaScript, HTML. We've got some cool filters over here. Let me pick. This is always a good one. And if I click the button down here, we can take my picture. And that animation you just saw there, and hopefully you're able to see some of that through the webcast, where it slides down into the little dash here. I'll do it one more time so you can see it. All that's being done using the Kendo UI revamped animation framework. There it goes, flies down there. If we go over to the gallery here, I've got some previous pictures and the new pictures we just took here. Watch as I page over. We're going to flip over the page, and there's some additional photos I've taken. That's all being done using the new Kendo UI revamped animation framework. That paging animation, that page turn, is now part of Kendo UI, as well as that little fly animation we saw where we transitioned from the big picture down to the small one. So all that's baked in there now, so you have access to that. And with that, let's go wrap up this keynote. Jump back to the slides. So after we've looked at all of this new stuff, the enterprise-ready release, and all the other great things in this winter release, what does that do for the licensing of Kendo UI? Well, just as before, each portion of Kendo UI, Web, DataViz, and Mobile, is available individually with commercial licenses, and Web also has a GPL v3 license available, each including support. And for most people, the best license available is the Kendo UI Complete license, which includes all of the parts of Kendo UI, Web, DataViz, and Mobile, and all of our professional support, priority influence on the roadmap, a full year of updates, and you've already seen how much we delivered in a year. There's no rest for the weary. We deliver a lot every year, so that's a great value. And as an added benefit for Kendo UI Complete license holders, as well as license holders for the Kendo UI Complete for ASP.NET MVC or in the future JSP, you also get unlimited tickets. So individual licenses for Web, DataViz, and Mobile have limited tickets. The bundles have unlimited tickets. So if you've got a lot of questions, it's the right place to be. And if you're an existing customer with an active subscription today, all of your bits are upgraded to the latest Q3 2012 winter release. So that's going to be in your account. So go check that out, download it, play with it. But if you're a customer who's been around since day one, so this is coming up on your renewal period, or you've joined us today for the first time, I wanted to give you something extra special to help you share in the excitement that we have for today's release. So I've secured a exclusive promo code just for today's live audience, so don't share this with your friends. It's only for those of you here today live to get 20% off any Kendo UI purchase, which includes renewals, upgrades, or brand new license purchases. It expires on November 26th, so it's a pretty limited time, so you've got to move quick. But we want you to be able to experience all of what Kendo UI has to offer, both now and in 2013. So get those renewals in and download Kendo UI today so you can take advantage of all of this. And one of the things that really makes Kendo UI significantly different than a lot of the other JavaScript frameworks out there is, of course, our professional support. That is what allows you to be more productive with our framework. And for this release, we wanted to figure out how we can really elevate that support experience even more for our customers, which is why we're introducing one more new thing with this release, and that is the Kendo UI Premium Forums. Today, the forums on Kendo UI are open forums, and we don't invest our own professional support team or engineering team in the forums. It's a community forum system. But clearly, we can never match the communities that are built up around major community forum systems like Stack Overflow. So we're going to shift the forums on KendoUI.com to be premium forums, which are for all customers and all 30-day free trial users. When you have access to premium forums, you'll be able to post questions, help each other. But, and this is what's significant, every forum question will be answered and every forum question will be addressed by Kendo UI's professional support team and product engineers, the people that actually build the product. To be able to deliver this, though, of course, any free support will now shift to Stack Overflow, and the huge and vibrant community on Stack Overflow, including the big community already there built up around Kendo UI, will be able to provide free support for the free users of Kendo UI. We think this will deliver a even better support experience for our customers and make the process of using Kendo UI that much more valuable when you jump on board, and we hope we can help make your life that much easier. So we're excited about this. It's going to be a transition period, so you'll notice a banner on the Kendo UI forums today, and it'll be there for the next few weeks, and no changes over the next few weeks. And then in about 2 weeks' time, the forums will become read-only for everyone, and everybody who has access, if you're a customer, you're a 30-day free trial user, you'll notice no change. You'll still be able to post and ask all the questions you want. So if you have any questions, and we know you do, stay tuned today. There'll be some additional blog posts. There's a great FAQ on KendoUI.com today to answer a lot of the common questions around this transition. And of course, if your question's not answered there, send us an email. We're happy to help. But we're excited to deliver this and make support even better for Kendo UI. And with that, there's only one thing left to do. Go download Kendo UI today. There's a lot of new stuff in there. We hope you enjoy it. Go download the new MVC Music Store demo, see how Kendo UI works in action, check out the latest updates to Kendo UI docs, and of course, look at these enterprise-ready improvements in Kendo UI. Great for big projects and all the rigors, simple enough and powerful enough for any project, even the smallest demo projects. And with that, that brings us to the end of today's core content. We're going to transition to an extended Q&A period. We'll try to answer as many of your questions as we can. We know many of you do have to drop off, so thank you very much for joining us for today's Kendo UI online keynote. Enjoy the latest bits, and we hope to see you in early 2013 for the next Kendo UI release and keynote. Thank you very much.